Couple of games left before the semester break. It's the holiday season, and Eric Galante is back. Let's unwrap another This Week in Hockey East. Everybody, so good to see you again with Eric Galante, of course. I'm Tyler Murray, getting geared up for always an interesting week heading in toward that semester break, some non-conference action, some out-of-conference play. But we always have a Hockey East game of the week on Nesson. But there's the game of the week, and then there's what's coming up at Conti Forum on Saturday. Eric, I cannot wait to tune in. You and Johnny Lazarus on Boston College, Providence College, top 10 matchup on Nesson. I mean, this is what it's all about.
Yeah, and remember a little bit of an earlier start, 4:30 on Saturday for the Eagles and the Friars for the first time this year. Amazingly, these are the top two defensive teams by scoring defense in hockey so far this year. Let's dive in a little bit. It's been a minute since Providence has played. They were off last week, so they haven't played since that Arizona State series. They haven't played a Hockey East game for a couple of weeks now. You go back to that UMass series where Providence dropped 2 games in a fashion that we are not used to seeing Providence drop games, giving up leads in the third period. They have barely done that 10 times since Nate Lehman's been the head coach at Providence. So they had lost 3 in a row, but it's kind of a this year Hockey East 3-game losing streak in the fact that, you know, all of them were by 1 goal. 2 of them were in overtime. Everybody's really good. Even if you're losing games, you're still really good. And I thought it was important that Providence bounced back and got that win over Arizona State. And they did so, by the way, after trailing 1-0. So they go into this little bit of a break, not with the sour taste of a losing streak in their mouths. They had that win against Arizona State. So now they come back. A lot of similarities with this Providence team that we've talked about this year to years past. They are best nationally, fewest shots allowed, just 22.5 this year. They are the 4th best scoring defense. Offense has maybe come down a touch here in the last couple of games, but when you're playing as well as they are defensively, when you have Philip Sved back in goal, you're able to overcome some of those things. The biggest thing for them this weekend is staying out of the penalty box. Providence takes the 3rd most penalty minutes of any Hockey East team so far this year, and Boston College's power play was really successful last weekend. It's been successful all year long. You look at this Eagles team, and at some point, as the year goes on, you kind of just know, okay, this team's good. And now we start to look at some other things that sort of analyzes how good a team can this be. I think it's true of BC. I think it's true of BU. I think it's true of Providence. I think it's true of a lot of teams in Hockey East. And the thing that impressed me last weekend, even in the split against Northeastern, who we know their record doesn't jump out, but I think we all understand the injuries and where Northeastern might be, is the fact that BC was down in both of those games. So even Friday when the Eagles lost, they were down 3-0 after the first period. That game was tied 22 game minutes later. So this team knows they have the ability to score in bunches, so no lead is safe against this group. They rebounded again, different style, only 1-0. They were down in the game on Saturday at Northeastern, but they came back really solid third period. And then just one other point on BC that, you know, we've talked a lot about them this year. They've been number 1 in the country for a while. Their penalty kill has been absolutely fantastic, and I don't think we talk enough about it. Tyler, Boston College has allowed 1 power play goal since October 26th. 1. That's it. They went 7 for 7 on the PK against Northeastern. They've been absolutely dominant. Jacob Fowler's a big reason why, but they're also limiting shots. They gave up 7 penalties, power plays for Northeastern. They only allowed 7 total shots on the power play for Northeastern. And Jacob Fowler, according to Instat, is close to a .950 save percentage on the penalty kill this year. So you need your goalie to be your best penalty killer. He's been that for BC. And then as a final note, this is the last game for Boston College until January 12th when they'll play Providence. Providence only has 1 game in the interim against Brown. Most of BC's roster, a good chunk of it, is going to be part of the World Junior team. They may even have trouble fielding a team later in December with how many guys have the potential to be on that team. So they are not playing a holiday tournament. So last game for a while, big top 10 matchup. Should be a lot of fun on Saturday.
It was interesting seeing Northeastern get out to those 2 great starts that past weekend. And I thought of what Greg Carville said when UMass escaped with an overtime win against Northeastern about a month ago now. He said, we didn't get geared up as much as we needed to take on a team like Northeastern because they've been struggling so much. I don't think anyone's going to get surprised by Northeastern anymore. The Huskies, it seems like they're turning a corner. So a nice job by Jerry Keefe to try to ride the wave there a little bit. And a team doing something similar is UMass Lowell. I'm keeping an eye on them this weekend. They got a home against Holy Cross, and Bill Riga's team. They swept UConn back in October, so they know what it takes to go into Hockey East and get a win. Sunday at Vermont, I thought the Riverhawks looked like the Riverhawks for the first time in a long time. We've talked about the injuries. A lot of guys have had to step up. They scored 2 first-period goals, and then they just locked it down defensively. It's what they do. They had a goaltender of the week performance from Henry Welsh, even though they were outshot 15-3 by a really impressive Vermont surge in that second period. They did not allow a goal in that frame. Welsh was about a minute and 10 seconds away from a shutout until a 6-on-5 empty net goal made it 2-1 with a goaltender pull. But they get the 2-1 win. They move up 10 spots in the pairwise to 30 now for UMass Lowell, so very much on the outside looking in. But they're moving in the right direction. And our guy Jimmy Connolly, Hockey East historian that he is, he reminded us that in 2012-13, really the first year of this era of success for UMass Lowell, the start was even slower for Norm Bazin early in his tenure. They were 4-7-1 this time about 10 years ago. Then they won 9 in a row. They only lost 3 games the rest of the year. They won Hockey East for the first time, and they went all the way to the Frozen Four. And they lose in overtime to Yale that year, 3-2. Who knows what could have happened if they get a couple of bounces going their way. Necessary context, though, that year they didn't have 6 key players injured, and they did have Connor Hellebuck, so keep that in mind. But 2 players I'm keeping an eye on this weekend. Captain Jake Stella, fully recovered from an early season injury, it would seem. Norm Bazin said he's looking better in practice. He's going to have a big weekend. He was talking about what we just saw Friday and Sunday, and that checks out. Bazin said that was the best he's seen him play all year. And then Holy Cross transfer Alex Peterson going to play his former team for the first time. He scored his first goal on Sunday, wound up being the game winner. So it's another guy Norm Bazin has said is playing his best hockey as of late. So they've had to have so many underclassmen step up with all their injuries. The sophomore class has been terrific. Nick Rayon making big strides. But I think for this Lowell team, it's going to be veterans like Peterson and Stella who are really going to have to help them ride the wave as they overcome a lot of guys who have been banged up. Norm Bazin says he's never had this many injuries combined in his previous decade plus behind the bench. So big win for them. We'll see if they can stay hot against Holy Cross in that home and home.
You know, it's funny. I was talking with the voice of the Friars, Mike Logan, the other day, and he said, who do you think might surprise in the second half? And, you know, I think like we've been talking about, it was kind of no one and anyone, because I wouldn't be surprised by any of these teams going on runs. Partially because of the injuries with Northeastern and Lowell, like you talked about. Partially, we've talked a little bit about UConn and how they probably should be scoring more than they are. Vermont's, I mean, there's no one. I mean, it could be anyone at this point, and that's what makes Hockey East really exciting. One women's game we want to point out, actually 2 women's games I want to point out, one team before we get to some short shifts, and that's Providence, who has an interesting weekend ahead of them. The Friars with 2 road games this weekend at New Hampshire, who's been very, very solid, and at BU. The Friars are coming off a shootout win over BU last week. There's an opportunity here. Providence is 8th in the Hockey East standings right now, but they're only 4 points out of 5th. And they have a couple of games at hand against some teams higher up than them. So with their last game going into the break, if they could find a way to steal some of these road games, they might have a chance to move up a little bit. And you think about the difference of going into the holiday break 5th versus 8th in the Hockey East standings. That could have a pretty big impact on things going down the line. So an interesting weekend for them. It's not easy to win on the road, certainly not easy to win at UNH when you consider how well that the Wildcats have played here recently. Back-to-back 1-0 wins, 3 consecutive shutouts for UNH for Sedona Blair in goal, who is the Hockey East goalie of the week. So they've been really good. Both teams looking to find a little bit more scoring, but they've been very solid defensively. Providence is 3-3-1 in their last 7 after a little bit of a slow start. So we'll see if they can do something this weekend with a couple of road games.
All right, short shifts time, couple of minutes left. Let's dive in. Final points here. And I'm giving you the Pairwise update this week, Eric. As you know, still 6 Hockey East teams in the top 12 of the Pairwise. BU, Maine, and Boston College in the top 5. Providence is number 8. And then UMass wasn't hurt too badly by that overtime loss at Vermont. They're still number 10. But I'm keeping an eye on UNH. They're number 12 right now. And this weekend starts a 5-game stretch where the Wildcats just have to take care of business. The teams they're going to play, with, of course, the semester break in the middle, RPI, that's this weekend, Army, Sacred Heart, and then Princeton twice. Sacred Heart is 30th in the pairwise, but the other 3 teams they're going to play, they're in the bottom 10, and this is where you get some landmines in your schedule. It's really costly if you can't take care of business against teams like that. But, I mean, we've seen UNH knock off some national contenders, of course, BU and Quinnipiac. I mean, it's still those wins that have launched them to where they are right now at number 12 in the pairwise. can they handle the other end of the spectrum, and maybe with a talent advantage and with more on the line, hopefully UNH can keep that going to keep those 6 Hockey East teams very much in the national tournament conversation.
Yeah, let's look at the women's side of things as they come to the end of their first semester. And one thing that really stands out is just how well the goaltending's been across the board. Let's look at some of these numbers. 9 different qualifying goalies in Hockey East have a goals against average of 2.4 or lower. 6 have a save percentage of .920 or better. Some really solid performances, and some teams that maybe aren't scoring a ton, but they've been kept in a lot of games because of how well the goalies have played. I want to specifically mention Megan Warner for UConn, who we didn't see playing a ton at the beginning of the season, but has played a little bit more lately. 7 starts, has a .961. Say that again, .961 save percentage, 6-0-1 record. That's part of the reason that UConn is on top of Hockey East as they go into the holiday break. But the goalie is really standing out. We'll see if that continues in second semester.
Yeah, Warner, she's earned her way into that starting rotation, if not taken a bigger hold of the job than you could have expected. Those numbers do not lie. Warner, an absolute stud for the Huskies this year. And then really cool, this Wednesday, Boston hosted the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame induction celebration, and it's loaded with Hockey East icons this year. Longtime NHL executive Brian Burke, he played for Providence in the pre-Hockey East era. But how about Boston College women's coach Katie King-Crowley? On the ice, she played for 3 Olympic teams. 14 goals is tied for the most in Team USA history. And we know what she's done as a coach. I mean, these are some impressive numbers. 6 Frozen Four appearances for Boston College. But more than anything, the consistency. Since 2010, this is a stat that includes both the men's and women's conferences. Boston College women's hockey is the only program in the conference to finish top 4 in the standings every single year since 2010. That just speaks to the program she's built. And you want to talk about players who like going to battle for their coach. Her team actually surprised her by showing up at the induction event this week, unbeknownst to her. So a great moment and well-deserved recognition for Katie King-Crowley. And then legendary NHL referee Brian Murphy, of course, the current Hockey East supervisor of officials. I mean, you think about what kind of resume it takes to make the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame as an official. Well, he worked the Stanley Cup Final 9 times, and he's one of just 2 Americans to have officiated over 2,000 NHL regular season games. So I think that'd do it. I mean, he's probably going to act like he doesn't deserve it. He's one of the most humble guys we know, Brian Murphy, but what he has done just in the last few years alone to help improve the communication and education, even for guys like us, about different penalties and reviews and things of that nature. I mean, it's hard to imagine Hockey East without Brian Murphy, so really excited to see him get that honor on Wednesday.
Well, it's kind of bittersweet because we're about to go into the dark ages of December here with not as many college hockey games, but we'll still sort of be around. Folks may have seen earlier this week, the U.S. World Junior Team's preliminary roster was released. There are 8 current Hockey East players on that list, 7 of them from Boston College. We mentioned that earlier, and Lane Hudson as well from BU. There'll be others on some of the international teams. We're going to do some different things in the month of December with obviously the schedule a little bit different. We'll dive in with a full preview of how Hockey East is in the World Junior Tournament and some things you can look out for. So much more talk on that coming up as we go through this month.
Can't wait to see all the great games this week. And again, the game of the week, 4:30 on Saturday, Boston College against Providence College. And then I think for these players and coaches and even the Hockey East staff, a well-deserved layoff and a break for the holiday season. Can't wait to talk to you very soon. And we'll see you at the rink, everybody.